Staying with us in our ongoing coverage of the corona pandemic. We want to let you know that New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio has prepared the possibility of actually ordering a shelter in place in the next 48 hours as the city tries to stop the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. Well, the question is, what does that actually mean for citizens? What does that mean for the everyday person that's driving, walking, just everyday living, right? And so here to tell us more about that is the district leader of the 82nd Assembly District, Marjorie Velazquez. And Marjorie, good to have you.
Hi, great to be on.
Great to have you. And certainly a unusual time and unprecedented. I know we can't say that we've ever experienced this in our lifetime before, but looking at the way that things are right now, especially for New York City, talk to us about Mayor Bill de Blasio and the decision that he's making with regards to possibly sheltering in place. Although as of right now, a decision hasn't been made, but just the thought of it is real serious.
I mean, if you think about it, the mayor has been recommending this for quite some time now. If you have seen the slow rollout of it, asking folks to work from home, asking people, if you don't feel well, stay home. It essentially is what he's been leading to do, and having folks be responsible and staying out of areas where you can, spread the virus unintentionally. This is what he's called for quite some time. Also, I think as more folks have not taken it seriously, that's what's led to more of the closures, more of the request to take things down to from 500 to now 50. It's just been literally trying to find a way to get folks to realize the importance of this matter and taking it seriously. The fact is that there's a struggle now, and there are procedures to do it. So it has gone from a recommendation, and now will the city and the state impose it as a regulation, right? Recommendation, regulations, two different words, two different worlds. And it's on us, right? It's on us to take it seriously. It's on us to take care of one another as a good neighbor. So, if you're not feeling well, stay home. It's not that hard. And if there are issues in place, finding out how to best adjust to that. So, one of the things a couple of friends of ours, mine, have done, and what we've done collectively is fill out a sheet. There are volunteers everywhere, people who can volunteer in different capacities, whether it's having a car to pick up supplies for folks, pick up groceries for folks that need it. That is available, and I can send it to you so you can circulate it. If you're able to help others out, why not? Let's do this together. And if you are in need, there is an intake form as well. And this is throughout, I know for a fact in the Bronx, there is some in Brooklyn as well. And I can share you these links so that way we could all work together collectively. If you could volunteer and take care of someone's child while they're at work because they're busy either working our transit system, our medical systems, this is what people need to be educated on. And this is where we're asked to step up as New Yorkers, right? Help as much as you can where you can.
And so in your district right now, can you talk about what's going on? I mean, you've got a lot of people, some are in worry, anxiety. So what's the message and what are you telling your district?
What I tell my district, multiple things, right? If you can stay home, stay home. It's that easy. But of course, the reality is a lot of people are service workers. And so there are multiple levels of work and multiple different disciplines. So how can we best attend to that? Have a friend, has a hair salon, was concerned. How do I deal with this without making my employees go on unemployment? Unfortunately, how do we deal with that? And it's connecting those resources. SBS at this point has issued a link of temporary relief to small business owners, and it's following that guideline. If you're a service worker who has lost their job, there is actually ways to mitigate this, right? Service workers, what we're talking about, bar and those that work in kitchens that are closing, there are ways to help out as well. There's a volunteer service of working with kitchens if you want to volunteer, but making ends meet is important. And there are ways to file for unemployment. That's easier now. And there's other labor groups that are actually providing assistance. So I can send you all the links that we do have so folks are not out of money. That's the other thing. You are protected, and that you are understanding that we are in it together. I can tell you for a fact my area has stepped up to the plate. Like, you literally, it's eerie to say the least with the streets to spare, but it's also a good comfort that people are adhering to the suggestion of staying home. And, everyone gets a little cabin fever, but that's why we're here. We're calling up people, calling up friends that you haven't reached out to in a while. Checking in on them is also a great suggestion. One of the things that me and my girlfriends have been doing are video group chats, right? And so that way we can share that face-to-face time in a different way, but it's being there together.
Yeah, and those are great helps that I think we can really take part in, because there are people who like to be home, and there are other people who do like to be home, but they definitely will experience cabin fever if we're talking about staying in for the next 2 weeks. And 2 weeks is a long time when you've got parents with kids and things like that. Talk about the school system and those parents out there who are really challenged as far as healthcare, or not just healthcare, but daycare issues, and then also the fact of how are we feeding our kids.
So once again, I have to be so proud of the district. This restaurant, two restaurants in my district, are offering breakfast and lunch for their children, for kids in school. So that is Mama Juana Cafe, and they're on East Tremont, and you also have Acre Cafe, and they're on Commerce. And these are two restaurants who have just taken upon themselves and volunteered. There's several others in the Bronx, Bricks and Hops, Bistro, and that's if you're in the South Bronx. There's so much pride when it comes to the Bronx in stepping up, and they've been unbelievable. And side note, schools are open for lunches as well, and breakfasts, because that's one of the biggest concerns, right? When shutting down the schools, it's providing food for kids who this is their only way of getting a meal, and being realistic of that. I think that this time has shown that there are people with real vulnerabilities, whether it's health, whether it's financial, and how do we, that have a little bit more privilege. And by privilege, I'm literally saying if you're able to make a meal for yourself at home, that is a privilege. And I think we don't forget that. And how do we make up for it? Take that privilege and give on to your neighbor. Cook for your neighbor. Drop it off at their doors. Those baby steps actually mean something. And, the city's doing it on a broader scale, having schools give out breakfast and lunches, and also having these amazing restaurants that have literally stepped up to the plate and more by providing food for the community at large.
And what are we talking about in regards to homelessness? Because we do know that the Bronx has a large homeless population. What are you hearing about homeless services and how the homeless are actually being taken care of in your area right about now?
So in my area, we do have a shelter. It's at capacity, and what they're trying to do is so the one in my area is the Crystal Place, and they have been top notch. They have been providing their clients, as they call them, with up-to-date information and dealing with that. Now, I think that the broader issue that we've been having is, where do we put those that are homeless now? And I think conversations definitely that I've seen online and that I've seen definitely in social media is, do we ask these hotels that have spaces now, we ask them to take on the homeless? How do we deal with that? And having those conversations, I think it's definitely what we need to continue. And we have to house our neighbors, right? And we cannot forget the vulnerable population of the homeless. And how do we do that? Having those conversations and pushing for the federal government to give us more funding. They can do it, and they have a lot of resources as well. I mean, definitely what we've noticed in the healthcare situation, we need those ventilators. And, one way to facilitate that is definitely through the federal government opening up more resources through FEMA and through the engineers. So we really just need to step up on the federal level, on the state level, and the city level, making sure that we're holding the federal government accountable for giving us our due. And I think that that's the challenge that you've seen that the state and the city both have, is understanding that there are limited resources that we do have in the city and the state, and that federal assistance is a necessity at this point.
And before we go, I want to ask you a couple of questions about both the mayor and the governor. Governor Cuomo getting large praise for how he's handled this situation, given the fact that it was almost like he had to take the lead before the federal government actually stepped in. And then also New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. Your thoughts on how state and city government has actually handled the coronavirus situation?
I think certainly you've seen both the mayor and the governor step up to the plate. And both of them have been calling on the president to give us more of the funding that we do need at this point, and more of, opening up the resources. It's not just financial resources, it's the ability to ask agencies that are in place to go ahead and come down and give us the resources we need. One, two, look, what you have seen in TV, I think one of the greatest things that we saw yesterday was both Cuomo brothers banter on TV like siblings. And I think that gave us a step back into humanity and say, you can get panicky and all that, but at the end of the day, siblings will always bicker, especially the older sibling, talking about the privileges that the youngest ones had that they didn't have. And I think, it takes us away from this panic mode that we are in, and it humanizes us to an extent. I feel like the mayor has definitely taken up the step in making some tough decisions and making some tough calls, especially with closing down the schools. I know for a fact that's never an easy decision, especially when it involves so many children who rely on the meals. How we did this, how we addressed it. It takes a lot of time and thought, and doing everything now at a warp speed. You have to give them both praise for what they've been doing, because it's not an easy task. You're talking about people from different spectrums and in financial needs and in financial privileges, and balancing that out is tough, but we're going to get through it. We are tough New Yorkers, and I'm proud to have both de Blasio as a mayor and, Governor Cuomo as our governor, because, we've definitely gone through some of these harder things where, look at Washington State right now.
Yeah.
And look at the situation that they are in. I'm glad that we are taking it seriously. I hope that, more New Yorkers take it seriously and not congregate together in large bars. We just can't afford that,
Yeah, a lot to really pay attention to, and certainly we'll continue to keep our eyes and ears open. And if the shelter in place goes into effect, the governor says he doesn't plan on putting a quarantine like a shelter in place for the state, and doesn't want to see it happen across the city. Of course, we'll continue to see it. We'll continue to monitor it here on Open, and then bring people more information. But Marjorie, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing with us, bringing us up to date as to what is happening in your district. Marjorie Velazquez, thanks much.
Thank you. Take care, Jimmy. Thank you.
All
Take care.
right. Thank you.
Well. Bye.
Thanks. Now, listen, if you want more information on Marjorie, what you can do is go to MarjorieVelasquez.com. You can find out more information about her. As for Open, you'll get more Open coming up right after this.